Alright guys, what's going on? Now, I know I haven't put out a video in a minute. Ever since I got back from the trip, it's been pretty busy around here. So, I got all of the trip videos loading up, actually, while we speak. But there's like 7 or 8 of them, so it's gonna be a minute. So I thought I would do a video, and I got to wondering what I would do. And a lot of you guys asked me about the wet pallet. Now, actually, somebody from YouTube, I think it was swimming in Mountain Dew. I could be wrong. I don't think it was Solid Smurf. I think it was swimming in Mountain Dew. He's the one that re-turned me on to it. I'd heard about him years ago. It just sounded like more of a problem than anything. So, you know, being the artist, sometimes we get stubborn. Don't want to get a new idea, which is totally wrong attitude to have. If you're not learning, there's a problem. You should be learning every day. Something. Alright. Get off the preachy part. The wet pallet. Go get yourself a little Tupperware container with a lid. Airtight lid. Now the paper is a waxless paper. I actually got some off of a guy from my game store. I had mentioned it, and he goes, "Dude, I have some of that in my pack." And he gave me a few sheets. But if you go to a art supply store, you can actually find paper that's made for a wet pallet. It's waxless. I don't know what the wax has to do with it, or if there's wax on all paper. I'm really not sure about that. But I know if you look up like Dick Blick or some of your bigger art supply stores, and look up a wet pallet, you'll find paper for them. Now, I know, I believe the War Store, you could buy a wet pallet. I'm not really sure if the War Store's got it, now that I'm thinking about it. I do know Privateer Press has one, because I was looking on their website at their paints, at the P3 paints, and they had a wet pallet, and they had the paper. The only thing I would buy was the paper. The rest of it you can get at your Wally World. Okay, maybe that's a hillbilly term. Wally World. Walmart. Is that better? Wally World. Because it's an adventure going in. But anyway, Rubbermaid container with an airtight lid. I got the sponges. It's got the little green stuff on it, little scratch pads, and then just peeled the scratchy part off. I could have got regular sponges, but I figure I could use the scratchy stuff around here for scrubbing tools or whatever. Cut them out so they fit your container. Alright, and then cut your paper to fit your container. Now, you want enough water that your paper is completely wet without having puddles. With there being a sponge in there, if a spot starts to get dry, you can just tap on it and it'll soak up the water. What it does, you can see where I was using a little bit of brown one day, squirted a little blob on there. It helps to thin the paint down because you're using the water. Good for mixing colors, but the best thing about it is it helps thin down paint. Now, if you listen to the trip, you heard Nataku talk about how he likes the Reaper brand because they're real thin. I like the GWs. He says it's like working with glue. The consistency he thought of glue. The wet palette would be really good for him because he could put that on there and work off the palette just like you would, oh God. Now that I want a palette, just like you would a regular pallet. Alright? You know, like on this, I'll usually put water in this area or in one of these other ones. Right now my pallet's dirty as hell. I need to go in and wash it. But then you can thin out your paints in a pallet, or you can mix them. Same thing can be done in this. But it helps to thin down the paint. And another good thing is, if you've got to, say you don't have a lot of time today, but you know today and tomorrow you're going to be painting, you can put your paint in here, close the lid. Now your paint won't dry out. Paint will last 2 or 3 days in here, so it does save on paint. I don't know about the ones that don't have a lid. I don't think that your paint would last. I know the top would probably get a shell on it. The bottom still might be good because of the water being in there, but some of the wet pallets I looked up, some of them are quite expensive. Because the sponge is cut to size. Some had lids, some didn't. You know, $1 or $2 at Wally World, a couple bucks for sponges, a couple bucks for paper, and that couple bucks worth of paper will last you for, God, a long time. And the sponges and the container, I mean, unless your dog grabs a hold of it and chews the shit out of it, I don't see it running out anytime soon either. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see how much water. You can see how I've got it right about here. Now, you could probably take it all the way up to here. I wouldn't, because if an area does get dry, like I said, all you got to do is take your fingers and smush it down a little bit. It will absorb the water. And the sponge is going to stay. This has been in here for 2-3 months at least. Same water. Haven't gotten to paint, and I didn't see no reason to dump it out, and I wanted to see how long it would last in there. Now, I wouldn't go drinking that water because it's been stagnant, but it doesn't smell. Paper hasn't molded. So why? I guess you could. But heavy painter, I wouldn't. I wouldn't change paper or water or anything until you covered up one whole paper with paint. I guess you could, but why? But like I said, all you need to do is put a splotch down in there and then just pull a little of the paint on through the paper, and with that paper being wet, it's going to help thin out the paint and give you a thinner coat and a smoother coat. And I was watching today, Terrainaholic was showing how he was painting miniatures with craft acrylics, because they're a lot cheaper. I mean, for $2 you get a big ass bottle, where GW is $3.50 for a little bottle. Plus he's a train guy, so I've got those same kinds of paints up there. I don't use them for my miniatures, but with a wet palette, I don't see why you couldn't, because you're thinning them down, and it's going to make it smoother. And if there is any lumps, you just brush it off to the side, and you don't get it in your paint. So it'll make a smoother coat. And I think in the long run, it's going to look a lot better. Plus, like I said, if you've got to stop for a couple hours or a day or two, put that load or that lid back on it. When you open it back up, that paint is still going to be pretty good. I've left it in there 3 or 4 days before. That brown, I had it in there for at least 3 or 4 days, and it was just starting to get to the point where you might not want to use it. But I mean, 3 or 4 days for one, of paint. I mean, that's pretty damn good. All right, guys. If you'd like to see me using it, let me know. I can show you a video of me actually putting paint on something with it. But I think you guys know how to do that part. Alright? Cool. Peace.